Hi and welcome to Indigo Starfire. My name is Bevin, and in this video I'm going to be looking into the question, what does the person on your mind want to happen the next time they see or speak to you? These are general messages, so just take what works, leave the rest behind. If you would like a personal reading to look more specifically into your situation, I offer those for purchase through my Etsy shop. There's a link to my shop in the description box of the video. I've also launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn, where I do readings related to topics other than love and romance. There's a link to that channel in the description box as well if you're interested. So as far as this reading is concerned, there are 3 groups to choose from. Group 1 is the Yang card, along with the green Fluorite. Group 2 is the Unfinished Symphony card, along with the Selenite. And group 3 is the No Place Like Home card, along with the Chevron Amethyst. So if you want to take a moment to center, focus on your breathing and feel whichever group, maybe multiple groups or perhaps all of the groups that you're most drawn to. I'll give you a minute to make your selection and then we'll get right into it. And there are timestamps in the description box of the video for each group if you would like to jump ahead. And up next is a close-up photo of the cards and the crystals to help you better make your selection. Hi, Group 1. You chose the Yang card, along with the Fluorite. So, in terms of some quick introductory messages off of this card, this is giving the essence of empowered action that the person on your mind wants to take, something that has been building within them for quite some time. This can be a confession of feelings. It can be a message to open the lines of communication between the two of you. Once again, if you've been in a no contact situation with one another, if you're still in the phase of kind of getting to know one another, or there are certain parameters or borders to your connection in terms of how it is defined openly between the two of you, this is really the essence of building speed, building momentum. Kind of the pressure is on, the pressure to act in a way that solidifies your understanding of the impact that you've made upon them and their life, feelings that have developed, bigger plans for the future, kind of a wider horizon that they now envision in terms of where they would like to take the connection. There's a sense of somebody who may have really been on the fence as far as if they were ready to commit, if they were ready to resurface in your life, kind of feeling the situation out, sort of testing the waters to see, is this just chemistry? Is it just surface level passion? Or is there kind of a deeper bonding force that exists between the two of us that can be the byproduct of time that we spend with one another? So somebody who might have been kind of deliberately holding themselves back, sort of taking the long way to this point of getting ready to pivot the situation to the next level. If this is someone that you're new that you're dealing with, this can relate to a process of, as they've been getting to know you, they've also simultaneously been triggered in certain aspects within themselves, wounds from the past, trust issues, sort of a fear of opening up emotionally or following their heart that might have led to a sense of very deliberate or methodical movements as far as these emotions are concerned. And it feels to be something that isn't reflective of anything necessarily that's a red flag with you or this situation. It's almost like you've done everything right. You've checked off all the boxes as far as what they've been looking for. in terms of a companion, in terms of partnership, in terms of somebody to, get to know better and kind of enter into a deeper layer of connection with. But it almost feels like this guardedness is a byproduct of times where they may have been very impulsive in the past in terms of who they gave their attention and affection to, times where they had invested so much of themselves into a circumstance and situation without taking the time to build a proper foundation or to really sort of vet out the situation beyond kind of like a surface level appeal of people that gravitated toward them or that they had expressed interest towards. So it's almost like in this situation with you, this is a process of sort of tapping into areas within themselves that they have looked at as deficits or weaknesses in terms of their strategy, their game as far as love and romance is concerned, and a sense of rules or structure that applied in previous circumstances that led to disappointment. They've taken a very conscious approach of doing things differently in this situation. And the two of you have crossed some sort of threshold or mile marker where it feels like now they're ready to move in closer. Now they're ready to start to discuss things in a more long-term sense. Now they're ready to give more intensely and intently to the situation with you than they have previously. And if this is somebody that you're in a no contact situation with, it feels like this process of sort of vetting the circumstance out ties into a lot of kind of self-reflection that they've been going through in the time apart, where they may have really projected blame in the past as far as maybe accusing you of coming on too strong, putting too much pressure on them, a sense of momentum that had built, and then somewhere along the lines things kind of got off track, got off the rails. Fears may have surfaced on both of your parts, or a sense of just things moving too quickly, even just energetically, even in an internal sense, to where putting the brakes on and taking a step back has really allowed them to sort of honor that part of themselves, that, skepticism as far as trusting in love, trusting in their feelings, anything as far as kind of questioning what they had to really give and feed into the situation in the past. They've sort of reshaped how they're holding that and are now feeling very empowered by the idea of moving towards you and beginning again, or giving some kind of explanation, opening the lines of communication to like a heart-to-heart discussion as far as their motives in the past with you, holding space for you to kind of vent and express the full range of your feelings. This is in essence, if you're in a no contact situation, of someone who is not expecting you to just, the minute they show up, let bygones be bygones, all is forgiven, all is forgotten. There's an understanding that at this point, it's going to take time to kind of nurture and rebuild that trust. But they're almost trying to use sort of the errors on both your parts in the past, knowingly or unknowingly, as a way to course correct in a better definition. They're not wanting to throw the towel in on this situation. They're not wanting to just allow this to be a defeat or a loss. There's a compulsion towards you. There's a magnetization towards you, to where it's almost distance has helped in this situation, because it's given this person the opportunity to really just sit with themselves, with kind of the focal point or the source of any blame that was attached, anything that they had run from as far as your intensity, your affections, kind of just even things that were an undercurrent sort of between the two of you, nothing very directly that has happened. It's almost kind of like that variable has been taken out of the equation, and so there's been no other choice, no alternative than them to sort of sit with feelings that still exist for you and to really puzzle that out. Why, if I feel so intensely, have I self-sabotaged? Why, if I feel so intensely, have I pushed this person away? Why, if I feel so intensely, have I run from this circumstance? So it's definitely something where no contact, or someone that you're currently dealing with, there is an urge to, in some way, add fuel to the fire of building the intensity between the two of you, but in a very kind of measured pace of intensity, so that it's not something which just becomes totally out of control, and what you've built with one another up to this point in time, or what you had in the past, that all of that is just sort of tossed aside. But there's a sense of I want to go deeper with you energetically and emotionally, and I'm ready to kind of give more to this situation rather than holding back and kind of taking time to marinate and deliberate about sort of what to do in this situation. So let's see what else they want to happen the next time they see you or speak to you. Okay, so we have the storyteller, the key holder, and the sovereign. So with this storyteller energy, this can definitely relate to excuses that they have made in the past, feelings that may have been denied for you, that there's an essence of wanting to kind of unlock the illusion, take away that veil of mystery, and really honor and empower the truth of what they have held inside for you for quite some time, that it almost feels like something that was a defense mechanism to kind of just put the wall up. You've accessed something within this person's emotional space. You've entered this sort of inner sanctum within them that few people have access to. Perhaps even no one has touched this person on an emotional level as deeply as you have without consciously meaning to. And so it almost feels like something where there was a reflexive kind of pause or a pullback. Or for some of you, this would be, pushing you away, running from this, running from their feelings. And there's an essence here of wanting to provide some sort of explanation to show you a more authentic and true version of who they are, what they feel, and kind of contextually how that relates to your dynamic with one another, planning toward a future where the two of you are operating more on equal footing as far as these are my fears, these are my hesitations, these are my hopes. This is the entirety of sort of what I hold inside related to this situation. There's a rigorous degree of honesty that it feels like this person wants to bring forth to you. So this isn't just, it feels like going to be a conversation of, this is too intense, I'm so afraid, these are the reasons why it's not going to work, but it's almost a sense of kind of like, I have hope for the future. I want to keep investing in this. I want to resurrect this situation. I want you to understand that my conduct in the past was not a reflection of you, but some sort of wound within me or fear within me or something I didn't understand, like an unconscious shadow that was kind of just running behind the scenes and kind of orchestrating all this reactiveness almost. And it's a sense of becoming very clear, providing you with a level of insight to where you're both aware of sort of the intensity of what is building, what exists within them, and you're also aware of kind of what they've been working on in order to sort of transcend those boundaries and limitations within self, and also making you aware of, this is what I'm still dealing with. This is a glimpse into kind of that current of fear, that current of hesitation. For some, it may be a bit of a backstory that is provided. These are some of my experiences in love and partnerships. Like if you've not had that conversation with somebody that you're dealing with that's sort of new in your life, as far as your romantic history, kind of the best and the worst, that full roster of experiences that you've had that can kind of give context and a neutral sense to sort of the wounds that the other person you're dealing with is kind of navigating through, what they're holding inside, their hesitations, that isn't necessarily supposed to serve to excuse behavior, but can almost just serve for each of you to be educated about one another, as far as these are the bumps and bruises we have each incurred along our separate paths prior to kind of intersecting in one another's lives. And from that place of almost providing more information, giving you more of the full picture, it's an essence of sort of like, this is a part of myself which has not been revealed yet in this situation. Knowing now what you know, do you choose to move forward with me? Can we find a way to make this work? Can we find a way to fit this puzzle of each other and this dynamic back together again, in a new way, in a way that is based more on honesty and less on kind of reactiveness if you've been in a no contact situation with one another. There's a sense of really providing you with this energy of the sovereign, of some sort of a space of like a sacred honoring, almost that they're showing you a glimpse within themselves, or they're wanting to, that is not easily brought forth. It's not a regular part of their dominant personality. It's almost something where it's like you've gained access to some VIP area within themselves, and what exists in there is kind of, it feels like an intensity of possibility and potential, but then there's also a lot of hurt that exists within there. And so it's a sense of kind of wanting to provide you with a more well-rounded perspective of who they are emotionally speaking, so that, and it's with almost the intention of sort of, I'll show you my wounds if you show me yours, so that the two of you are operating then more on a level playing field with one another, as far as how you can each sort of do your part individually and together in order to build towards something more cohesive, more satisfying, more comfortable, a feeling of safety within yourselves and with one another, in kind of the kindling or the enhancement or, the elevation of the connection to the next level. So let's get a couple more cards and look a little bit deeper into what else they want to happen the next time they see you or speak to you. Okay, so we have Ash, Thunder Moon, and Snow Moon. So this lunar energy is definitely talking about kind of a peek into their dark side, not darkness in terms of sort of negativity or nefariousness or anything like that, but almost just kind of what is hidden from ordinary view, kind of the secret face within themselves, where both the intensity of deep hope and longing, and also kind of the constricting factor of fears and wounds that they've sustained in kind of life and love, where all of that exists. They're taking you out into this uncharted territory within themselves. They're bringing that forth in a way that, with this idea of kind of the snow moon, it's not trying to sugarcoat over anything. This is not somebody who at this point is wanting to open up these lines of communication with a bunch of excuses in tow. That might have been the case before. That might have been a tendency within themselves, in just the way they navigated life in general, kind of glossing over things, outrunning or trying to outrun disappointments, and kind of just finding themselves in a loop of disappointment over and over again. No matter what they try, they end up right back at the same space of kind of like isolated within themselves, with kind of this jumble of sort of fear and desire within. And so there's an essence of kind of safety that they feel in your presence, with the idea of you, in kind of the times you spent with one another, what has built, what has kind of surfaced between the two of you. There's a sense of kind of a higher wisdom with that energy of the ash, that is bringing forth almost this nudge from a level of themselves that transcends consciousness, that is almost, it's the essence of that they've honored some part of themselves, even if they've run from this situation. Something was triggered, and rather than kind of fighting that current, they allowed themselves to ride that current. That it may have led to heartbreak, it may have led to disappointment and loneliness, or if it's somebody you're still dealing with and there were triggers that told them to just sort of like stand their ground, hold firm, don't pour into the situation entirely just yet. it's almost like in this act of sacred honoring of themselves, this profound act of self-love, really putting themselves and kind of the organic sensations that were surfacing from within, however that has unfolded up to this point in time, it's almost like that consciousness that sort of supersedes their everyday and mundane reality has now tapped them on the shoulder and said, it is time to return to this person's life. It's time to try to fix things. It's time to sort of pour more into the situation. It's time to reveal yourself. It's time to sort of let this person in, let them see behind the curtain, let them know kind of what you're working with and the components emotionally that makes up who you are at this present moment in time. It's a sense of, not impulsivity to want to elevate the situation forward, but it's almost like with that idea of the thunder moon, something that has been very resounding, as much as the triggers may have led to, a sense of kind of reactiveness almost, or even sort of freezing in place. This is almost kind of the idea of something that may have come through in a dream, in an epiphany, in a sign, in a synchronicity, maybe something you said in passing that just shifted a version of recognition within themselves to where, all of a sudden, like this guardedness, this wall, this sort of self-protective mechanism has been dropped, and now there's this urge toward vulnerability. There's an urge to kind of let you see more of the entirety of who they are, what they were working with, their motives in the past, how that has kind of resulted in their actions towards you up to this point in time, and then based on that, sort of where the two of you can move forward with one another if you choose to sort of develop in that direction. If it's somebody where they need to come in with an apology, there's a sense of a desire to plant seeds that are of an intense nature that it's very unmistakable as far as what their motives are. This isn't someone who's just going to want to come back in and pretend nothing ever happened. They may be in the process of kind of scripting or building up some sort of deep conversation, something that provides a lot of details, something that holds that space for back and forth, for a dialogue to take place, anticipating there may be some resistance on your part. It may be a process to kind of dig themselves out of this corner they've put themselves in, or that they've kind of pushed you away into, in order to access that place of there's trust again. We're operating on the same page. We're moving in the same direction. Or there's closure. If this is somebody that you don't choose to build anything with beyond this point, there's an essence of almost, we can't leave things like this. I owe you some sort of clarification. So even if you've closed the door on this situation, even if you've found peace in your own way, at least there's some kind of vindication provided. Although it's an essence here with this thunder of wanting to resurrect something. If they had been very quiet about their feelings or held that back in the past, there's an essence of wanting to open those floodgates and kind of scream out to the world almost, these are my feelings. This is the true essence of what exists within my heart. If this is somebody that you're currently still kind of building a connection with, you're still getting to know, you're still dealing with, then again, it's the idea of sort of the seeds planted up to this point in time have been well tended by this instinct within them to operate in a particular manner in this situation. And now they're at this point of almost wanting to move beyond ways in which they've kind of snowed themselves in, kind of barricaded themselves, shut down that heart, put up almost an ice wall very deliberately or very instinctually. There's an urge to kind of melt that away, to flow towards you rather than allow kind of the stance that they've taken up to this point in time to create more distance or cause the two of you to sort of ebb away from one another. And so definitely some kind of conversation, some kind of not just words, not just empty words, but actions, gestures, consistency, more effort and attention on their part in order to bring clarity, in order to provide you some degree of clarity, so that the two of you can kind of put a conclusion in a way, or sort of wrap up a layer of how you've been dealing with one another, the definition of your dynamic up to this point in time, and start to really plan for kind of what comes next, the essence of sort of like spring and rebirth. Where do we go from here? What's the next kind of layer or chapter in our adventure with one another? How is this going to sort of unfold in a way that fits and fulfills both of our requirements and our needs and our desires and our wants for what love and partnership can look like, should look like, will look like in this situation and in life in general. So let's get some messages from this person's higher self and see what they want to tell you right now. Okay, and they say, I can't stop thinking about your beauty. So maybe a little bit intimidated to have this conversation with you, to take things to the next level, to resurface in your world, in your reality. They're wanting to make kind of this next point of contact or this next sort of evolution. They're wanting to make that into a very beautiful and comfortable experience for the two of you. And they also say, I'm so proud of who you have become. So if this is someone you've been at a distance from, they've definitely been watching from afar, or have maybe just checked in recently and are kind of amazed at the transformation that you've gone through in the aftermath of kind of how you left things with one another, how you were, the state that you were in, kind of the place in your life, or both of you in your lives when you last kind of parted ways with one another. There's a sense of them really recognizing that if they're feeling an apology is owed, or they're wanting to sort of open those lines of communication again, there's an essence here. Even if you're feeling that you're still very kind of broken and in the place of picking up the pieces of your heart from this circumstance and situation, this person sees you as having really transcended a lot of that. Like, even if you're in pain, you carry that so well with dignity and grace, and it's something that is very inspiring for them. It's really caused them to sort of see you from a different perspective, which it feels like has kind of led to that essence of deep introspection and kind of being able to identify wounds within them that they'd kind of projected out. They'd pointed the finger of blame and have since sort of turned that lens, that way of looking deeply within themselves. They also say, I wanted to tell you so many times already how much I missed you. So again, that essence of a conversation, taking things to the next level, resurfacing in your world, in your reality, that is not a decision that has been entered into lightly. It's not something that they just woke up one day and were like, I'm going to look this person up, I'm going to come back around, I think I'm ready. It's almost like they've been observing or feeling into your energy, or really just soul searching within themselves, and kind of the more they come to this place of reconciliation with them, the more they are able to kind of see and perceive how at least making an attempt to carve out a new path towards you is in alignment with this kind of higher truth and reality, this sort of higher version of themselves, or a more kind of accepting version of the entirety of who they are. All those roads lead to sort of you, to taking things to the next level, to reintroducing themselves into your life, to trying to rebuild that trust, reestablish a connection, maybe starting off as friends and kind of taking time to blossom into that layer of romance. This can also really talk about somebody that you've been getting to know, you've been dealing with. It's kind of like the relationship is building, and the more time that they spend with you, or even kind of just in quiet reflection in the aftermath of the times you spend with one another, the more the fact is impressed upon them that to continue to give and feed into this connection really brings out a better version of them, that they already are so comfortable kind of being in their authenticity in a way that might not be typical or easy for them, or maybe has never happened before. And so there's an essence here of wanting to give more to you, wanting to sort of participate more with you, to kind of have reciprocity in this situation, more vulnerability, more kind of like building of that trust and comfort, in the essence of wanting this situation to evolve into something more long term, more stable, more kind of solidified, to clear away any misconceptions, any kind of vague or undefined energies here. There's a sense of wanting to establish new borders in this connection, but with a lot more kind of freedom to roam in terms of emotionally with one another, rather than kind of like, you know, two people seated across from one another at a table and just having a dialogue. There's an essence of wanting to move in closer, wanting to kind of snuggle in with you in this situation, and really start to sort of feed into and experience that essence of comfort and connection with another person. They also say your warmth radiates through your soul. So you are a light that they are drawn to. They think about you a lot in between the times when you are speaking or seeing one another. If it's someone you're at a distance from, they may be kind of encountering a lot of signs and reminders that are drawing their attention back to you. A lot might be happening in the dream space energetically during meditation. There's a sense of, if they're watching from afar, they're very compelled in your direction, like a moth to the flame. But in the past, that might have been something that they had either mistaken it for, or maybe it was just at the level of kind of development where it could have been very sort of like a lust-based energy, kind of purely sort of categorized or predominantly categorized with like physical attraction and desire. That might have been something that caused them to kind of put on the brakes or hold back, the essence of, I don't know if this is necessarily an emotionally safe space for me, even though I feel so compelled there in kind of more sort of animalistic or kind of material or surface level ways. And so it's almost the time that they've taken, the time apart, the time to introspect, has really helped them to transcend that notion within themselves, or that way of kind of looking at you in this situation, approaching this dynamic in the past, to where now there's this interest in tapping into those deeper currents, using that kind of carnal energy as a means to go deeper into more of the subtle experience with you. They also say, deep down, my intentions with you have always been pure. So there's definitely a desire to clear the air, to make sure that you are very aware of kind of their longer term intentions with you, plans that they have as far as the future of this connection is concerned, or a desire to build on equal footing with one another and to establish some kind of common ground that may really involve almost like a list or a very sort of logical explanation of what may be very complex and nuanced feelings that they hold within. This is something where they're kind of thinking about an in-depth conversation, maybe a series of conversations, a way in which sort of the nature of your dealings with one another expands and evolves. There's a sense of it can't all be solved or explained fully in one sitting, but there's the essence here of wanting to kind of show up consistently in a different manner in your connection, in your life, so that you understand they've evolved beyond, or are no longer satisfied with the dynamic as it exists between the two of you at this point. And there's a desire for more. This isn't, I'm no longer satisfied with this dynamic, so I'm exiting the situation. It's, I'm no longer satisfied with this dynamic, I want to go deeper, or I want to return from the past. I'm no longer satisfied being at a distance. It hurts out here in the cold. I'm ready to come back in. I'm ready to help participate with you in kind of re-sparking, rekindling this connection, tending this fire between the two of us, rather than having it be so inconsistent or one-sided. And they also say, I'm showing you your wounds and things you need to work on. So there may be a lot of mirroring in this situation, a lot of shared triggering that could have been the case in the past, or is even sort of still currently the case. Trust issues perhaps on both sides. There's a sense of Again, if it's somebody that you're at a distance from, you're in like a no contact situation with, they've observed in some way energetically or like social media, or they're seeing you out and about, hearing about you through other people. In some way, they're gaining access to information that has showed them, even if you still feel you're very much a work in progress and kind of coming to terms with what's happened, they are seeing that you are focused on like an upward arc as far as your narrative trajectory. Your efforts toward healing, toward creating peace for yourself, has been very successful in their eyes, and they're seeing you kind of on this trajectory of growth. And with that is the sense of being very inspired by that, wanting to participate with you in that capacity, able to kind of see you from a different lens because you've created energetically the essence of a new vibration that's going out. It's something that you hold within that maybe wasn't the case before, that was only accessible through sort of disappointment and heartbreak and pain, almost like the road to ascension through kind of suffering. And you've reached a place of mastery in that. You've created a flow with that. You're in the groove with that. And it's something where it's helping to kind of inspire this person to overcome obstacles within themselves. It's giving them this courage and this motivation to have a difficult conversation, come forth in a humbled energy, to participate with you, seeing you as somebody who would make that really good, partner, that really good kind of support system, that person that they want more of in their life, rather than allowing kind of, your roads to diverge in different directions. There's a sense of kind of like, how can we maneuver at this point in time in order to rebuild a sense of congruency between us, or to, ensure, even if these are sort of parallel paths, separate paths that we're walking, that there's still kind of this bridge between the two of us, where we're working together, even in sort of our in our separate spaces, or on our separate kind of roads to that place of whatever that next sort of horizon is between the two of you in this situation. So get some initials. This can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or it can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. N, N, L, O, R, F, P, G, P, X, U, C, F, G, S, D, Z, V, C, and I. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 2. You chose the Unfinished Symphony card, along with the Selenite. So to channel some quick introductory energies off of this card in terms of what the person on your mind wants to happen the next time they see or speak to you, there's a sense here of wanting to hold some sort of space for you to be able to express yourself more. This could be somebody that is kind of prone to nervous chatter. They may very unconsciously have been sort of dominating your interactions with one another up to this point in time. And it's almost a sense here of them recognizing or kind of taking a step back from this tendency, or maybe even something that is very out of character for how they normally operate in the world, that they in some way have been kind of clued in, has surfaced in this situation with you. Kind of an uncharacteristic nervousness, a sense of being very intimidated by your presence, intimidated by your energy, feeling almost kind of triggered in some sort of way, some sort of wound of like lack or doubt, or a bit of an imposter syndrome perhaps within, that they hadn't even been able to recognize before, or up to this point in time, that has kind of led to an essence of wanting to overcompensate, wanting to impress you, wanting to kind of fill any sort of empty space or perception of emptiness with kind of, these are all the things that maybe will make you find me to be more compatible, more interesting, more attractive. And there's a sense of that they've turned some sort of corner as far as recognizing that the energy of reciprocity in this situation has become, or has been, very lopsided. It's been very one-sided. They're almost seeing maybe that times where you had tried to express things that were important to you and they hadn't given any kind of a reaction, or it's something to where they almost found ways to sort of turn the conversation back around to them. And they've gotten some kind of wake-up call, some sort of clue here that this is given the exact opposite impression of what they had hoped. They may be picking up on something from you subtly, or ways in which you've almost withdrawn your energy from them. You've kind of taken your power back. You're sort of, there's like a wall around you, maybe energetically, where, whether this is conscious or unconscious on your part, there may have been an essence of almost kind of questioning, is this person very self-centered? Is this a narcissist that I'm dealing with? Is this somebody that just wants someone to listen to them and is unable to kind of operate in the stance of even pretending to be kind of fascinated by, the details of who the other people are that they're dealing with. There's an essence here of, you might have started to feel really as like an observer, or just an audience member, of kind of the dynamic with this person, in ways in which they were sort of running the show, kind of in a shadowy sense, just instinctually stepping into almost kind of a leadership position, but very fear-based, to where it almost might have stemmed as well from an essence of kind of feeling very uncomfortable or very out of their element with just how comfortable they feel revealing things to you, speaking to you. There's a sense here of almost like a past life dynamic between the two of you, where this person has felt that it's like you're picking up where you left off, even though you're kind of, you might be new to each other in this lifetime. If it's someone you've been dealing with long term, that there's been like a pause or a disconnect in the situation, you're in separation. This could have definitely been the essence of what they felt in the beginning with you. Is almost kind of a way in which they got ahead of themselves, and in a certain manner almost forgot to kind of check in or learn who you are in this lifetime, because at a soul level, it's just like, there you are, here we are again, we're picking up where we left off. And so it feels like something where they've almost been trying to fill this void, or this space, with sort of like, this is the personality I've created for myself in this lifetime. These are the experiences I've had that it's kind of like led to the formation of the capsule in a very broad sense of that word, of the soul that you are familiar with across the course of lifetimes. Kind of, this is how I've manifested in the here and now. For some, it might be that they're getting like glimmers of sort of a spiritual aspect of things in that nature, or it may just be in a very kind of linear sense, an understanding that they have, that they've kind of, as much as they have sort of thought that their approach to you in this situation up to this point in time was laying a very good foundation, as far as there's communication, I'm opening up, I'm speaking, I'm talking, I'm engaged in this situation, that it in fact in some way has become almost like a wedge, that there has been a lot of output on their part, and you've just been sort of sitting there in this receptive mode, almost kind of waiting for your turn to talk, or waiting for your turn to start to suggest what are some of the other range of topics, range of experiences that we can delve into in order to get to know one another in a deeper, more well-balanced, more thorough way. So they've had some kind of moment where they've checked themselves, that to continue on in this progression, even if things are going really fine between the two of you, if you're in communication, you're still getting to know one another, there's something that has kind of clicked within them as sort of like their approach, their strategy, or even something that again kind of like a wound within that is, it's causing almost this exacerbated kind of outpouring. They're not feeling that they're holding enough space for you to kind of feel that they are trustworthy, that they are really interested in who you are as a person beyond just kind of your role adjacent to them, or kind of like the building of sort of a common bond between the two of you, that there's an essence of sort of like they feel that they operating at a disservice to kind of who you are individually, the struggles that you're going through, your backstory, your experiences, that they've been putting their own needs first, or kind of putting themselves at sort of the head of the interactions between the two of you. And there's an essence of them understanding that it's time for them to take more of that passenger seat role. It's time for them to kind of allow and really sort of consciously will themselves into a place of sort of giving you space to express in your own unique way kind of the more nuanced layers of who you are as an individual, who you are as a human being, what it is that you're looking for in love and partnership, rather than kind of presenting this sort of resume of who they are, almost to kind of earn or justify their place in your life. So let's see what else they want to happen the next time they see or speak to you. Okay, so we have the Waymaker, the Curious, and the Receiver. So great confirmations here as far as an acknowledgement on this person's part that in some way they've not been holding enough space for you to start to blossom in ways that they sense and know are possible within you. And it's not because of some fear on your part, although you may really have a fear of trusting, fear of opening up. There may be hesitations or kind of discernment on your part based on your dealings with this person up to this point in time, your history, your backstory with one another, or even totally unrelated experiences in love and partnership. But it's a sense of them really understanding that they need to shift their positioning or their approach to this situation to allow you to have the opportunity to kind of step up and lead this connection into the next kind of turning point, into the next pivot point. Your contribution is wanted, it's valid, it's necessary at this point in time. There's a sense of kind of like, what do you want? What do you feel? What do you want to do? And not having that be a question that is sort of posed and you're able to kind of get out a word or a sentence, and then they're right back into a state of kind of presenting you, almost telling you all the things that you would want to hear that would sound good to express in a way that they're on board with kind of your vision for the future of this situation. But there's a sense of them almost understanding that they want to become a better listener. They want to be able to hold space for you more in this situation. You may have really been a shoulder for this person to cry on at different points in time, maybe even just, as in the process of getting to know one another, and as they've been expressing parts of themselves or ways in which they view the world, or things that they've discussed as far as, their own emotions or stories that they've told you about their life in general, that this may have been something that the way in which you honored kind of the pace at which they wanted to open up, that this might have been something very unusual for them. They may have been used to people in their past kind of presenting conditional love, act a certain way and things will be good, but kind of put your own needs first and things will unravel. And so in this situation, it almost feels like something where you may be a highly empathic person, you may be a good listener, you may be, your energy may be very therapeutic, you may be a healer in general, and this could be something that almost just as an instinct energetically, this person has received a lot of sort of healing from the experience of getting to know you or your dealings with one another in the past, but they've now kind of reach this place of understanding that in some way the connection is moving too much in the direction of almost like a therapist sort of dynamic, and that's not what they want. They want romance. And so in order to kind of cultivate that, there's an understanding that they need to stop utilizing this outlet with you as just kind of a dumping ground for all of their authenticity. Like there's a time and a place for that, but at this stage there's a need for them to be that shoulder for you, to be that space for you to just kind of take off your armor, to kind of unshoulder whatever burdens that you're holding. Even if you're not going to open up and express this to them verbally, there's a sense of energetically they've been putting off sort of the impression of just a very projective energy. I'm going to give all of this. And there's an essence of needing to sort of open up kind of a void space within them for you to be able to kind of fill in that aspect within this connection of maybe some of the more kind of subtle or less obvious elements of who you are, that there's a need here to kind of encourage you to sort of open up in different kind of ways that have not been the case for you in general, have not been the case already in this circumstance. It's definitely in a big picture sense, they feel to be at a point now of understanding that there is the capability to have a very beautiful experience with one another, but give and take, reciprocity is something which is necessary. It's a necessary component. And it's something to where, however you've been showing up for them up to this point in time in this situation, this feels very, very outside of the box, completely the opposite of whatever their history is in terms of love and partnership. The role that they typically take in situations may have been that support system for others. They may have dealt with a lot of needy, codependent people, people with kind of a lot of emotional wounds where they needed to just be that kind of stoic, that strong one, and hold space for others to sort of flail about in their state of woundedness or find their way to solutions. They may have been really accustomed to kind of being that rock for other people until their lives were better and then they were discarded. They were no longer necessary. Their own needs and wants and kind of desires and wounds were just sort of overlooked or swept under the carpet. It wasn't part of the equation. And so in this situation with you up to this point in time, it's almost like they're experiencing the opposite, where you're interested in kind of who they are. You're honoring kind of the range of what they are able to kind of provide, what they are wanting to give, in a way that is very uncharacteristic, but it has now crossed a threshold of sort of, they understand that it is time in this situation for them to kind of step into what is their typical role, their typical love language, under ordinary or usual or historical circumstances, which is somebody who holds the space. This is someone who is capable of that. It's not outside of the box for them to be somebody that is that safe space for others. And it feels like you've provided a lot of healing already up to this point in time in this situation by providing that safe space for them in a way that no other romantic partner has. And so now it's the essence of, I want to reciprocate that with you. It may not come in the form of them outwardly sort of saying, hey, I know that it's been very one-sided in certain capacities, or I feel that. I feel like I've been kind of pouring too much. I've been unloading too many burdens upon you, and I haven't really been very good or very consistent or very kind of present or astute at sort of checking in with you, or, just sort of following those energetic cues. And even if you say, no, everything's fine, no, I'm all right, it's a sense of this person has this ability to kind of read between the lines and to know when words do not match up with the essence of an energy. And yet they've been operating just on that surface level, kind of ignoring that energetic instinct within, that even on days where you may tell them, no, everything's all right, and there's something else kind of going on or something sort of troubling you, instead of them kind of moving into their what is natural for them, which is to kind of hold the space until you're able to ground yourself, or you choose to open up about things, or to kind of operate as that harbor for you in the midst of tempest. There's a sense here of they've gotten a lot of healing and deep fulfillment from the experience of someone else kind of providing that function for them. But now they are almost wanting to kind of soften their stance into what comes most naturally. For you, it feels like as well to be able to meet this part of them, to meet this version of them. And there's a strength within that. There's a sense of kind of like, this is the other face of the essence of what I am, that in the past may have been taken advantage of or wasn't appreciated by others. Kind of someone who was maybe drained to the point of depletion. Like maybe that's kind of a theme for them in their interpersonal relationships. And in the situation with you, it's almost up to this point they've experienced someone kind of allowing them the ability to unfold or present a different kind of version. You've been a safe harbor for them, and there's a desire to return that favor, to allow that to kind of take more precedence for your benefit. But it's not going to come in the form of, I see the error of my ways, I'm going to do different. This is almost something where it's action. It's kind of just a shift in how they're approaching you in this situation. So let's see what else they want to happen the next time they see you or speak with you. Okay, so we have Hawk, Hunger Moon, and Tobacco. So this energy of tobacco, it's definitely sacred honoring. They see you as a very sacred presence in their life. You've brought a lot of healing to them. You have almost been a companion while they have walked themselves back to some understanding of their own innate divinity, wellness, wholeness. You've been there with this person through kind of a process of accepting more of the entirety of who they are. And it feels like something that has been accomplished by virtue of the fact that the dynamic between the two of you up to this point in time, how you've been showing up, kind of what you've brought to the table and what that is brought out from within them. This person is healed in a lot of ways that they may not have conveyed to you, or almost kind of wounds that they weren't even able to perceive prior to kind of this experience with you, to where their energy feels better. Their outlook on life feels better. They feel that their life is more enriched after having crossed paths with you. And now there's a sense of, I want to give back to you in that same way. I want to be there with that idea of the Hunger Moon to kind of hold space for you in your hour of need. I want to be there as kind of this well, or this vessel where you are able to pour kind of all of these beautiful and subtle and complex and complicated aspects of who you are. I want to be the witness to all of that as you sort of emerge as a more complete version of you. There's an acknowledgement on their part with this hawk energy that kind of what they know of you, what they have really, through their own sort of approach and energy, encouraged or allowed to kind of surface from you, that has built this situation up to this point in time. It's a very kind of one-sided perspective. They're feeling that it's just, there's so much more to you than meets the eye, or so much more to you than they have been able to experience. And it's almost something to where, even if there are things that you've like held back about yourself, or you've been very discerning, you've been very cautious, in kind of getting to know this person, or if you have like a complex history with one another, to kind of let them back in, there's a sense of almost their energy or their approach to the situation up to this point in time has not been a proper invitation for you to almost kind of soften in, or bring forth something that is kind of hidden away within yourself, that there's almost like a beauty about you that they have not yet been able to experience. There's a stranger within you that they've not been able to experience. And a lot of that kind of has to do with sort of their energy and an element of kind of dominance in this situation, or taking the lead, trying to kind of direct the course of how things have operated, or really just sort of picking up on that vibration or that experience or that dynamic between the two of you of like familiarity, deep and profound acceptance, and that they really needed that from another person in a general sense, and also romantically. They needed to experience that such a thing was possible, but they've now reached this kind of place of, I want to know that other side of you. I want to present myself in an energy that you feel comfortable kind of, revealing truths about yourself that, maybe you haven't shared yet. Maybe you haven't had a safe space to like allow this version of you to kind of run wild or be expressed or be known. A sense of them really perceiving or understanding that there are qualities about you that would be very compatible with things within them. And this may be like a shared experience between the two of you where these qualities and aspects hadn't been appreciated by family, by friends, by other romances, and it's almost like the best parts of who each of you are kind of tucked away in the shadow, or something that you don't usually sort of quickly introduce, or try to kind of dilute down, or sort of tuck away, because there's never been a place of acceptance for that. The role that you've performed already in this situation for this person has helped to bring out a part of them that is not usually well received, or does not find a place of acceptance, hasn't had an outlet. And so there's an essence here of, I want to switch sides in this situation. I want to kind of be that stability for you. I want to be that listener. I want to be that kind of vessel, or that void that you are able to sort of unfurl into, that you are able to pour into, that you are able to kind of bring forth in a creative manner, and in an organic way, and in kind of a nature and intensity that is comfortable for you. Parts of yourself that have not found a place where they fit. There's a sense here of like a depth of connection that's possible, and in order to kind of move in that direction, there's a need for kind of a switching of the roles at this particular point in time, so that things that are very unique you can contribute to kind of the long-term development of the situation has the opportunity to kind of come out in the light of day, has the opportunity to be expressed, even just energetically, even if it's not through words. It's almost like there's a spectrum of your energy that this person has not invited in yet. They've not held the space for it. It's not been possible based on how they've been showing up. And so an urge to kind of course correct and really just hold space for you, become that active listener for you, to really kind of, open and convey and embody that essence of sort of like, what are your thoughts? Who are you as a person? What are your kind of goals for the future? How do you feel about this dynamic at this point in time? What are your kind of visionings for the long-term sort of scenario between the two of us? So I'm going to get some message cards and see what this person wants you to know right now from their higher self. Okay, and they say, I know one day we will find our way back to each other. So this can tie into that idea of like a past life connection between the two of you, a lot of deja vu that they have gotten when they're talking with you, when they're interacting with you, things that you may have said that have kind of sparked other sort of soul memories within them. There's a sense of them understanding your paths have not crossed by accident. And this also feels to tie into kind of some sort of cry for help, some sort of SOS signal that was going off inside of themselves over the course of their life in general, during other kind of romantic partnerships, ways in which they were in that sort of positioning of just honoring another person's wants and needs to the expense and the detriment of their own. That there was always this kind of plea for something more. Love shouldn't feel like this. There has got to be something more than this. This is not what human connection ought to feel like. This person may have really been on the brink of kind of shutting their heart down, or just sort of, giving up the pursuit of finding like a partner, a mate, a companion, who really just sort of sees them for who they are and that they could be very authentic with. They may have been almost on the brink of sort of like, well, I guess love isn't in the cards for me in this lifetime, at least not in a healthy, high vibrational manner. And then you've come into their world and into their reality almost like an answered prayer, almost like something that you've showed up at just the time that they needed you, and you have operated in this sense of holding the space for them to really save themselves from some degree of apathy. And there's an essence here of, I want to give back. I want to, even if you don't need that from them or from anybody, if you've already kind of gone through that process of, being your own redeemer in a variety of ways, there is still a sense of kind of like, you've given me this gift up to this point in time in this situation, and I want to show up for you in a way that if there's anything, you are requiring in terms of that place where you can kind of just breathe and relax in a very organic way, energetically speaking, that I'm the person, I'm here for that. I'm here for you in that capacity as well. And they also say, I always knew there was something different about you. So more of that energy of like a past life recognition, a clue and an indicator that it feels like happened very immediately with this person. A spark of recognition, or just when you started to get to know one another, it was like two best friends picking right up where you left off. If this is somebody that you've had a lot of back and forth with, times where you go, you're in connection with one another, and then for various reasons, kind of your paths diverge from one another, or things happen, and then there have been reconciliations. It's almost a sense of, and with this is an essence of them understanding that there may be kind of patterns of toxicity that are needing to be broken out of, so that you can kind of transcend what has happened. But it's almost a sense of, you pick right back up where you left off, no matter how much time has gone by, and you're right back in that essence, in that groove of, we're very cohesive with one another. There's a deep compatibility that goes beyond sort of likes and dislikes, your personal history, your romantic history, your dreams for the future. It's something on the soul level of, we fit so well with one another. And that essence right there is something that they're wanting to take more steps in the material world to make sure that this is not just a situation that they're so comfortable with that sense of congruence between the two of you that they are just making it all about them and their wants and their needs and their desires, essentially a self-fulfilling prophecy of what has been their systematic disappointment in love and partnerships up to this point in time. But they've gotten some sort of clue or indicator of them almost slipping into the territory of becoming what they swore they would never be. And so they've put the brakes on in that sense and are wanting to, it feels like, show up in a different sort of way to tone that down a bit, so that there's more equal give and take. So you're able to kind of pour more of your individuality into what's being built, and it's not so much a circumstance that is navigated predominantly by them. They also say, your beautiful soul is what I crave the most. So you have a very healing effect upon this person. Just even the thought of you, it feels like, brings out the best, or shines a light within them towards kind of making the most of the situation, getting through dark times, difficult days, times that they spend with you, interactions with you. It's like the highlight of their day. It's the highlight of their week. However frequently the two of you interact, there's something that they really look forward to in that capacity. It's almost the essence of, you are already, or you are becoming their favorite person. And so in that sense, there's this element of wanting to really kind of prove that to you, not just with words, but in terms of how they're tending this connection, how they're making you feel nurtured because you've done that for them in a very beautiful way. They also say, I've been dreaming about having a future with you. So yeah, some kind of wake-up call, something that clued them into a need to sort of shift gears and how they are approaching you in this situation in order to build more deeply with one another, with the intention of, let's make this circumstance last on into the future. Let's not kind of let the momentum of what we have with one another sort of fizzle out or become something very linear, kind of distance accruing, or a decision to kind of just step off the romantic path and maybe kind of friend zone one another, or go our separate ways. There's a fear of kind of missing an opportunity, or squandering an opportunity with you, if they don't kind of change their approach, temper down how they've been approaching the situation up to this point in time, and really allow more of the unique flavor and essence of who you are to become an element, like a predominant element in sort of this essence of the embodiment of the connection, as like a third energy in and of itself. There's what each of you brings to the table, and then there's kind of this living consciousness of the connection that you are developing, that you've built with one another. That's something where they find it to be very much a sanctuary and a safe haven for them through what you've kind of held space for them to bring to the table and what you poured into the situation. Now they're at the point of understanding, I need to feed and tend this as well in a more conscious and active manner. They also say, I lack the courage to come back to you. So this is really tying into that element of fear. If they miss out on this, there's almost a sense of you're growing and evolving, or you're the type of person that you're not going to settle for crumbs, that if they don't sort of course correct their strategy with you and this kind of situation at this point in time, there's an essence of, once they miss the boat, there's no coming back from that you are a unique and rare individual. This is a unique and rare situation, the type of thing that doesn't come around twice in a lifetime. And so it's to their benefit overall to become more mindful as far as how they are cherishing, how they're showing up, how they're participating in this situation. They also say, I had a crush on you from the very start. So that can tie into the element of being very kind of intimidated by your energy, something where, a side of them, almost like nervous chatter, sort of enters into the equation. And that might have been something that they had been very unconscious about for the most part, but in some way they've gotten some kind of wake-up call. That higher self has sort of tapped them on the shoulder and said, hey, look, this has worked up to this point in time. You've come this far with one another, or if you're at a distance from each other, sort of like, this is one of those big things that kind of got in the way in this situation. In order to salvage the connection, in order to build beyond this point, it is very necessary for you to take a different approach to the situation, more of a receptive mode. Allow this person, the time and space to really sort of take up space within the energy of the connection, rather than kind of slipping into this place of, you, the viewer, maybe you find yourself being kind of the observer for this person a lot, and they're wanting to kind of move into that place of bearing witness to kind of more of the fullness and the vibrancy of who you are and what you really have to offer in terms of love and partnerships. So I'm going to get some initials. This can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Got E, Y, J, K, Q, O, G, V, N, T, A, B, F, Y, W, Z, X, C, B, and M. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 3. Chose the No Place Like Home card along with the Chevron Amethyst. So to channel some quick introductory energies about this card, this is the essence of somebody who is very intent on breaking a cycle that has either occurred between the two of you. There may have been several false starts in this situation. The essence of kind of build up an anticipation for the expansion of the connection in some way, and kind of things falling apart, fear holding this person back, or kind of making some progress, sort of like one step forward, two steps back. A dance that the two of you have been doing with one another that has almost kind of reached the point of it's uncomfortable in how routine and predictable it is. It's something that's leading to a lot of frustration on their part. There's an essence here of them understanding, I could be doing better in this situation. I could be doing a better job of kind of recognizing my breaking point in terms of what we are building with one another. This could be a person that has kind of like fears of commitment, fears of being almost kind of tied down or subjugated within connections. They may have grown up in a very toxic household. They may have had a lot of controlling partners in the past, a lot of sort of overbearing energies in their life, to where it's kind of resulted in somebody who just wants to remain kind of like a feather in the wind. They may have a very hard time sort of laying down roots as a general theme in their life in general and as a whole, kind of almost grass is greener, or fear of missing out. Somebody who's just has a very difficult time kind of planning for the future, or really sort of taking measured steps in the present to build toward lasting and solid foundations. This may be as a result of things which have crumbled down. This person could have been divorced, maybe several times divorced, and so it's almost a sense of kind of like, I've invested myself into connections previously and everything fell apart. I needed to start over again. And rather than kind of using that as a motivation to choose a different type of partner in the future, or to kind of own up to their role in the circumstance that collapsed, because it takes two to tango. There's an essence here of they may have just tried to outrun that kind of pain and disappointment, and that those wounds have surfaced here in this situation with you in terms of them undermining what you've built. A lot of self-sabotage may have gone on, a lot of just kind of keeping this connection at arm's length, emotional distance. There may even be kind of like a geographic distance between the two of you that is used as kind of an excuse to remain aloof or distant, or kind of in and out, hot and cold, wishy-washy sort of energy, rather than seeing that as an opportunity to kind of surmount an obstacle, which could lead to a sense of deep fulfillment and the building of the type of partnership they have actually been seeking. There's almost a sense here of them looking at you and the experiences you've had with one another in the past or up to this point in time with a little bit of sort of like, is this person too good to be true? This feels a little too comfortable. It feels a little too close to home. It feels a little too right. And that they have kind of been leaning into the glass half empty perspective about you in this situation, that even if you're sort of still getting to know one another, there hasn't been any kind of disconnect between the two of you, there's a sense of you feel like home to them. They feel very comfortable in your energy, and when they kind of allow themselves or are sort of carried outside of their their own kind of willpower. They just sort of slip into the realm of fantasy and kind of imagine a broader or more all-encompassing future with you. That might also kind of stir up a lot of these fears that have caused them to sort of push the connection back, put the brakes on, remain at a distance, that they themselves, it feels like they acknowledge, are a major source of friction in this situation, even just energetically, because there's some resistance to the pull towards you. There's a resistance to trusting fully in this situation, trusting that even though many things or something substantial that they had thought was kind of their place, their person, their one, that kind of heart they belong to, even though that fell apart and washed away, that there's an essence here of sort of all the obstacles or the kind of closed doors or the barriers, the barricades they've experienced in their life, all the turmoil has led them to a place of encountering you, that you're kind of that light at the end of that tunnel. You're that kind of blessing that was disguised as kind of all this wreckage that they've incurred, emotionally speaking. And rather than fully trusting in that up to this point in time, it's almost like they've tipped into this energy of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. They're expecting the worst in general in kind of their love life, and so it feels like they've been projecting, consciously or unconsciously, the energy of sabotage onto this situation, so that the dynamic between the two of you kind of fits that expectation of nothing good lasts. Things fall apart. Love's not real. Everybody's got their motives and their agenda. It's important to kind of, keep one's own interests first and not fall too deeply in love, or even kind of the idea of sort of, the person that is most in love in a dynamic holds the least amount of power within that dynamic. They may have really reached a point in their life where love was equated with power instead of being a source of empowerment. There's something here as much as they've been pushing against this situation or have run from you, have kind of even just subtly on an energetic level operated to perpetuate this distance instead of crossing that distance energetically, emotionally, geographically, some combination of those things. They've in some way kind of been clued in. Maybe they've been humbled. If you're at a distance from one another, there could be competition in the equation now, and they're aware of this, and it's almost kind of sent the message home that what they had thought was like the proper approach and strategy to you in this situation is actually something that they have now put themselves out in the cold, or they've created difficulties and obstacles, confusion, and kind of standstill sort of energy, that same predictable pattern of disappointment, or at least not fully embracing the gift and the potential here in this situation based on some kind of current of fear or wounding within themselves, that it's not you, it's been them in this situation. And so there's this desire to course correct, to kind of like find and pull a more almost innocent or unblemished version of themselves out of their kind of emotional body, sort of like that grain of hope, that light of hope, that kind of purity within their heart that they've been very self-protective about as a result of whatever thing or combination of things has kind of gone wrong in their love life up to this point in time, that there's a sense of kind of like, I can't just keep holding this sort of golden energy within myself forever and squander the gift and the opportunity to exchange that with another person who's vibrating on that same level with me, who's able to kind of receive what it is I have to give, energetically speaking, and that is kind of this safe space or like a nurturing space where love can blossom, and perhaps the history of love for me doesn't need to repeat itself in this situation, that there's an essence here of them really recognizing and understanding that in some way you hold like a key to their heart or some missing ingredient or component, that if they don't do something to kind of course correct or to make up for lost time or to show up in the situation in a different way, that this circumstance with you will likely run its course not to their advantage, and that they will be left with the sense of wondering what if. They'll be left with a deep sense of regret that this is like a blessing that has been provided to them, and they're squandering it, or they've squandered it up to this point in time, and that it's almost kind of time is running out, or they may have orchestrated circumstances and situations to where now there really are obstacles. Now there really is the need to kind of kick into high gear and do something to salvage this situation, to kind of bring you up to speed with kind of their motives within, with the truth of what they hold inside for you, with kind of wider range intentions that they have, a desire to build or repair the situation into something more sustainable that can be a haven for you both, as opposed to a dynamic that brings up a lot of woundedness and guardedness within the two of you. This is something where this is a person who's starting to recognize kind of that the wound and the trigger. It's not something coming from external. It's coming from inside of them. The call's coming from inside the house. It's something they need to deal with within themselves. That they may have been almost kind of unfairly punishing you or misjudging you and kind of putting a lid on this situation as a result of kind of energetic cords or memories attached to people that were nothing like you, circumstances that were nothing like this, that had left them with a deep sense of betrayal and wounding. They've come to that recognition in some way that it's unfair how they've been approaching you and this situation, because you're not the one that broke their heart. You're not the one that kind of, got their hopes up and then pulled the rug out from under them. You're not the one that kind of built in a direction and then threw it all away, or didn't kind of work with them to salvage what was broken. And yet you've been put into that box. You've been almost kind of suffering the consequences that others in their past, maybe there wasn't that opportunity for vindication. So they've almost been acting out that sense of woundedness upon you in this situation, attacking this situation energetically or emotionally, when in fact this situation is the remedy to what has gone wrong in their romantic life before. So let's see what else they want to happen the next time they see you or speak with you. Okay, so we have the Dragon Sword, the Listener, and the Wishmaker. So this energy of the Wishmaker, this is like the star, this is the restoration of hope. This is building toward a different kind of horizon, definitely seeing the forest through the trees. This has happened for them, a glimpse or maybe something that was very kind of shocking, that has been a wake-up call for them, especially if you're in like a no contact situation and there's competition now in the equation, or they're seeing you from a fresh perspective. They've kind of excavated some truth within themselves that is helping them to sort of look at your history or your experience with one another from a refreshed lens, less of a projective stance, more in like, I see my role in what's taken place here. And there's an urge to bring forth some kind of communication, some kind of heart-to-heart conversation where rigorous honesty is a factor. In the past, if this had been something where they had almost been pushing you away or repelling the situation, giving you mixed signals, there's an essence here of wanting to take things step by step, but to give you more of a glimpse into their backstory, into their sense of woundedness. But with that's almost the essence of, and they may be kind of holding back at this point in time until they reach some sort of mile marker, or almost kind of like new tools of communication, or ways in which they've been trying to kind of work on their intimacy issues, their fears of commitment, any toxicity or kind of low vibrational things that they've experienced as far as like childhood wounding, marriages, long-term relationships that fell apart, kind of the damage that was done that was never really dealt with, that you were punished for these kind of scuffs upon their heart that were left by other people. There's a sense of them really making the effort to kind of clean these things up within themselves, or to in some way kind of hold these energies more, and these memories and the experiences more in a place of consciously recognizing these shadow aspects within, rather than just kind of remaining very aloof, and as a byproduct having those shadows and those wounds be the saboteur in their life in general, and in the ways in which that energy has sabotaged the potential between the two of you, which you've had in the past, even the depth and nature and intensity of what you have currently. In some way, there's a level in which this person is kind of keeping this at a distance. They're pushing you back. They're not fully participating with you. They're not allowing themselves to sit in those emotions and have that equal give and take. And there's a recognition on their part that this needs to shift. This needs to transition. But they don't just want to come forth to you with like empty promises, or woe is me, or all these kind of excuses, which they're understanding that just adds to the problem. There's an essence here of them coming clean with themselves, and really starting to take the initiative to think outside of the box, or to think even more deeply, to look into that box for the first time, perhaps within themselves, sort of like, what are my wounds? What are my triggers? What is the programming that I am operating with in this world? How do these things, which may have been kind of a survival mechanism, are these really helping me to thrive and kind of make the most of opportunities and blessings to begin again, and to experience love and partnership that the universe provides? Or are these things kind of keeping me entrapped in that state of woundedness perpetually? So there's an essence here of honesty by way of showing up as a better version of themselves, more self-aware, kind of a strategy in place, tools that they have honed within themselves, even if it's just conscious recognition, so that what is presenting dominantly in their energy is more of the essence of like self-awareness, so that they are able to hear more deeply and read between the lines of any kind of instinct to run, any kind of triggering, anything where they find themselves questioning your motives, the integrity of the connection, kind of the harmony between the two of you, or if this is someone that needs to come back around and kind of make amends. There's an essence here of keeping a watchful eye on tendencies within themselves to sort of subvert the progress of this situation. They've clued in some way to how these wounds within them speak, how these wounds within them operate, the tactics and tricks of this kind of fear-based polarity within. And so it feels like something where they've grabbed a hold of this component of them. Whereas in the past, it may have just been sort of, the puppet master behind the scenes in terms of their interpersonal relationships and dealing with you. And there's a sense of, from more of this level of conscious awareness, showing up as not an idealized version of them in a fantasy sense, but more of just the ideal, the better version, the more well-rounded, self-aware version of themselves that you'd been dealing with in the past, or that you've been dealing with up to this point in time. So that exchanges between the two of you, it's coming from more of a wholehearted place, rather than something that may look good or promising on the surface, but brings with it a lot of sort of combative or kind of deflecting energies on their part, sort of the healing component of the dynamic between the two of you, kind of the harmony and bliss when things are good. The wounds within them might almost be very kind of adverse to that, and sort of is resistant to kind of the element of a healing experience, a healthy experience, a high vibrational experience in love. And on some level, they are aware of that, and it feels like they've taken steps in terms of a shift in perspective, maybe other kind of like coping mechanisms and tools. They've been educating themselves, maybe like self-help, reading up on psychology, watching YouTube videos, reading blogs, reading books, whatever that looks like, to at least kind of have a language or a structure to understanding what had been kind of just these vague sort of currents of triggers within. They've now got a name for these things. They now identify these things. There's a category to kind of these wounds, and sort of how that is continuing to ripple out in sort of the present version of themselves. And so at the very least, that's a step in the direction of something different from how they've been operating with you up to this point in time, which is what they're wanting to bring forth in terms of, if we can open these lines of communication again, or going forth into sort of the next layer of our connection with one another. There's a concerted effort on their part to sort of tone down or dial back or rein in or exercise and exert some degree of control over sort of shadow run rampant within themselves. So let's look a little bit deeper into what they want to happen the next time they see you or speak with you. Okay, so we have long night moon, cedar, and self. So this long night moon and self, this is really speaking about like dark night of the soul energy, the journey into self, the journey of introspection. Especially if you've been in a no contact situation with this person, it feels like they have gone down into, for some willingly, for others almost maybe through a series of tower moments or something that has happened that has kind of toppled them. They're unable to outrun kind of these shadows and have descended into that personal underworld. They have had to sit there in that anguish. They have had to sort of look at what has happened in their life, how they have tended these sort of disappointments or these wounds within, how they have not done that, what the consequences of this has been in terms of kind of pushing away wish fulfillment, in terms of being the saboteur of their own blessings. It almost feels like a huge inventory that may have happened. For some people, this may have been something where there was almost kind of the universe put a halt on something or put the brakes on something. Maybe there was some kind of health aspect that came up, something as far as perhaps like financial, legal, familial, something where it was almost just they've been put in a position where they got a lot of time on their hands and there's nothing to do but think and sit with this and really just be in their own company in ways in which they had avoided that previously, and we're just kind of living from one moment to the next and kind of just progressing forward, trying to outrun sort of a legacy of wounding or experiences of wounding. There's a sense of something having shifted to where for some people it's gonna just be like a wake-up call where enough was enough and they've chosen to kind of go in and introspect. But it feels like for a lot of other people this is something that it's kind of put a halt to their game. They've been forced. The universe sort of sat them down and said, look, you're going to look at this. You have no choice other than to kind of sit with this. And it's been groundbreaking for them. They've been in a process with this energy of cedar, of sort of purging themselves of illusions. A victim mentality has been released, it feels like, for a lot of people. Just the sense of even kind of holding space or looking at or being forced to recognize how they've gotten in their own way in this situation and in a broader sense in life in general. It's the essence of kind of, we aren't responsible for the things that happen to us. That's not our fault, kind of, as time goes on. But once we are aware of these things, once we kind of call them by name, it is our duty and responsibility to course correct, to create wellness for ourselves, to break out of these patterns that we may unconsciously find ourselves in. And so this feels like something to where they are in some level and layer in this process of kind of breaking free of illusions, breaking free of patterns, even just kind of ripping the veil off of themselves, or it being torn away as far as how they've been moving through the world and kind of the yield that that has created, things that may have caught up with them in terms of, coping mechanisms, a sense of trying to like outrun difficulties that could have had to do with, substance abuse or kind of, surface level relationships, a lot of just kind of thrill seeking and sort of on to the next in a very sort of broad sense in their life in general, that it feels like has led to something where they've had to go deeply within. That was no longer sustainable. There was something that occurred that has forced them now to kind of carve out a different path for themselves. They can't go back to that old way. There is no other choice but to kind of build in a new direction. And with that is kind of the clarity, like almost a healing and forgiveness journey that they've been on, that has now sort of reached this point of, I want to clear the air between the two of us. I want to at least provide some kind of an apology so that there's closure, there's validation for you, there's some kind of peace, there's the potential to kind of rebuild in another direction, or if this is something to where this is a person you're still, kind of dealing with, there's been no disconnect, maybe it's gone like hot and cold, but there's still been consistency. Nevertheless, it feels like this process of like a reckoning has been taking place within them, perhaps unbeknownst to you. Maybe you have noticed something off about their energy, or they've been making excuses or kind of disconnecting, distancing themselves, putting up walls in some sort of way, literally or energetically. But it's a sense of almost kind of, they've gotten some sort of clarity that to continue forth in this manner, in whatever their stance or approaches that they've taken you up to this point in time, is only going to exacerbate this kind of cycle of problems. That you represent kind of this opening to something different, an opportunity for them to kind of break free of their own tendencies and explore the road less traveled, which in this instance screams healing. It is unmistakably the road toward wellness within themselves. They see you in this situation as something that to give and to participate in a way that is more honest and more kind of equal than has been the case up to this point in time. This would be a decision that leads them in the direction of deep personal fulfillment, happiness, satisfaction, wish fulfillment, the kind of love that they have dreamed of. And so kind of departing from that energy of pessimism, that energy of self-sabotage, ways in which they've been very consciously or unconsciously kind of combative or needling this situation, kind of pushing your energies away, as much as they may also be kind of craving and calling that in and trying to participate with you in some level. The power is in their hands to break that cycle, and almost kind of, this feels like a leap of faith in the direction that they fear the most, which is trusting in you, trusting in this situation, trusting in their heart, trusting that this will not be like everything else that's fallen apart. Yes, there might be ups and downs, but to move in the direction of rebuilding something, rekindling something, participating with you more further than they have up to this point in time, that ultimately this moves them into the unknown, which could bring up a lot of fears as well, but it's unknowns in a very positive manner, rather than kind of like, if I move in this direction, how is everything going to fall apart around me? It's the essence of, if I move in this direction, how is everything going to kind of exceed my expectations? How is everything going to build into something positive? They may be very uncomfortable with sort of that essence of, things are going right, things feel really good, this feels very comfortable, and that's kind of kicked in this element of trying to sort of pick away at the foundation or pick away at the seams of this situation, to infuse some kind of toxicity or negativity in. And there's an essence of kind of, they've gotten a wake-up call about that. They've seen in a very broad sense, not just in terms of you in this situation, but in their life in general, that this strategy, this approach, this tendency within them has been that supremely limiting factor in terms of the quality of life that they're living, how they feel inside. what those circumstances look like, people they're participating with, what they're calling into their reality, what they're cultivating, what falls apart, losses that are incurred. There's a deep kind of recognition that they have more control over their life than they've given themselves credit for up to this point in time. And with that element of control is sort of like they are the manufacturer of a lot of their own problems and difficulties. But rather than sort of sitting in this woe is me attitude, there's the essence of, I need to build in a different direction. I want to do something different. I've got like this one opportunity, this one shot, this one outlet for course correcting. And it feels like already a shift in perspective has led to kind of a windfall of change in an abundant manner. They're feeling better inside. Maybe circumstances in their life externally are improving for the better through this shift in perspective. So there's this essence here of almost kind of wanting to provide you with some sort of clarified version of them, to kind of neutralize this unconscious urge to sort of sabotage the situation or push it away in order for some kind of element of like heaviness or almost like a foreboding that may have always been over this situation. Kind of, how long are these good times going to last? How long is this person going to participate with me? Are they going to run again? When are they going to run? Just like two people really on eggshells, it feels like, with one another. There's a desire here to, as a product of kind of balance that they've been trying to cultivate within, to bring more balance into the situation, to not respond to that hair trigger, to not kind of take that first sort of, tap on the shoulder from that wound within that says it feels a little too comfortable. It's time to start sort of seeking out the red flags where there aren't any, or to do things to disrupt kind of the flow in this situation. There's almost like they've reined that in some way, or they're aware of that. And there's an interest in sort of taking things slowly with you so that they are able to prove to themselves and kind of energetically to you as well that they're determined to start showing up differently than how they have in this situation up to this point in time, with the intention of sort of, maybe we can work through this kind of difficult phase with one another through what it is that they are working on within themselves. So let's get some message cards and see what this person wants you to know right now from their higher self. And they say, no one will ever compare to you. So this is definitely that grass is greener energy. If you are in disconnect with one another, if there have been third parties in the situation, there's a sense of they have not been able to outrun a sense of emptiness within. No matter what they have tried to do to sort of fill this void, in the form of other people, in the form of avoiding things, and in the form of addiction, just whatever that looks like. The time shared with you, the moments shared with you, the memories of you, the experiences with you, even just your energy, is the closest thing to kind of a place of peace and sort of a light that shines in the direction of deep fulfillment on an interpersonal level, through two people individually and then in a combined, conjoined sense. They've only been able to experience that with you as a byproduct of like the two of you intersecting in one another's lives. This is somebody that may have kind of been on this quest to find meaning for themselves, kind of the perpetual seeker, never satisfied, never comfortable with where they are, always looking for like the next best thing, waiting for the rug to be pulled out. Just a sense of difficulty sort of settling into their own energy. But with you, there's almost a sense of being very present, very comfortable with the not knowing, very just kind of accepting of themselves or their life as like a work in progress. But rather than kind of feeling that it's daunting, there's almost a sense of hopefulness that they have about the future. Whether this is words of encouragement that you've given them, times in their life that you've been there for them, or even just something about your essence which speaks to, no matter how the chips may fall, no matter how kind of difficult the burdens may be, internal or external, there's always the ability to kind of change fortune into one's favor. There's always the ability to kind of tunnel out of circumstances. There's always the ability to kind of use circumstances as an opportunity to kind of seek that solace within. They feel a deeply spiritual bond with you, and it feels like something that has been motivation for them to try and kind of find that essence of fulfillment within themselves, and really has been instrumental in them with whatever it feels like has kind of brought their house of cards tumbling down upon them in terms of how they've been moving through the world, or even just life circumstances that they've created for themselves. In the midst of all of that darkness, in the midst of that rubble, in the midst of everything collapsing on them, there was your light. They found you. They found themselves. They see you as kind of this reflection of potential that may have been very, it may have made them very afraid in the past. Almost the essence of kind of running from their own reflection is how they've been kind of pushing the situation away, or have pushed you away in the past. They've now come around full circle of kind of understanding that the reality of who you are to them, or this dynamic, it brings forth a lot of terror, but at the same point in time, it is the only kind of road to salvation of self that they have been able to discover. Kind of efforts to sort of align their energy with yours, or to work on some of these things within, so that they are able to present themselves or bring forth something of more meaning, value, and integrity to you, that is challenging as this is. You are that road to kind of a better relationship with themselves, which is a gift and an experience that has been lacking in their other kind of interpersonal dynamics, whether that's family, friends, or romance. There's something where it's almost not that you're without your own kind of polarity of shadows and wounds, but there's almost something that is refreshingly not toxic about you, and about kind of how they feel in their presence, in your presence, when they just allow themselves to be there and not kind of get all tangled up in a sense of almost looking for kind of warning signs and danger. There's a sense of almost a different version of them that comes forth, that's sort of reflected through you and by you, that they no longer have interest in kind of pushing away or undermining. There's a desire to kind of breathe life into that. You've brought something to their awareness. You brought something within them back to life. You've been there with them in their darkness without even knowing it. And it has been an inspiration for them to almost continue to put one foot in front of the other, to pick up the pieces, learn a new way of living, to be a different version of themselves, for themselves, and also for what can be resurrected or developed between the two of you in the future. And they also say, I've been working on my self-love and self-worth. So confirmation of somebody who is on a profound healing journey at this point in time, dark night of the soul, spiritual awakening, ascension. They may be going through a very rough patch right now. You may be feeling that and picking up on that, energetically speaking. And if so, again, it's this essence of sort of your presence, your light is something they are gravitating toward, even if you have not spoken to one another in quite some time, even if things ended very badly with one another. Something has happened within them. Something's been activated. Some kind of a turning of the page has taken place within them. And in that darkness, they have found themselves through the reflection of you, what you were always kind of bringing to the table, what you were always trying to show them. The light and the love that you hold and that you are inside, in a very unique expression, in a very unique way. This feels like something that this person is most likely watching you from afar, at the very least tapped into your energy, looking at you as kind of this living example and beacon, regardless of kind of how you're living your life or what your focus is. It's something about your energy where they're almost kind of calibrating themselves to that vibration, not in the sense of like, if I tune into this frequency, things will get really good for me, but a sense of, if I tune into this frequency and kind of follow it to its to its apex, to its point of genesis, to you. That's the road that I'm meant to align with. That's kind of the direction of my highest good. That's the uncharted waters that I was very fearful of, which are now kind of being revealed as, kind of the true purpose and intent. The happiness that was elusive before exists there. It exists with you. It exists in alignment with kind of this progression beyond the limitations within themselves. They also say, I'm showing you your wounds and things you need to work on. So this feels like something that's almost, it may be something along these lines with when they think of you and kind of how you represent this sort of mirror for them. This may almost be something that your energetic presence, as triggering as it is, this is what it speaks to this person. You are triggered because there is because there is something within you that you need to address. They in the past may have pointed the blame towards you, the viewer. There's something with you. You're agitating my energy. You're coming on too strong. You're the problem. You're asking too much. Whatever that looked like, whether these were words spoken or just kind of an internal dialogue within themselves, but it almost feels like now the tables have turned to where they're looking towards you as kind of a muse or an inspiration for aspects within them which become very triggered, very agitated, and rather than kind of just running with that, it's almost like they're setting little traps for these wounded parts of themselves. They may be forcing themselves to expose themselves to your energy, to watch you, to look at you, to really sit there in this kind of light of who and what you are, for the occasion when they know something will surface from within, some little alarm bell will sound, some little instinct to run will come up. And that's how they capture these opportunities within themselves of, this is something I need to work on. So it feels on some level that this person has advanced spiritually, or in terms of their maybe just kind of like concept of their own sort of psychological or emotional makeup. They may be doing a lot of inner child healing, a deep understanding of personal patterns. Again, it feels like for a lot of people, something or a combination of things has happened that has really brought everything to a screeching halt in terms of this person's life, in terms of how they were living. Maybe it's even just an existential crisis within. But there's a lot of kind of just, the old way is not working. I need to do something different. I need to create a different mechanism. I need to forge new tools for myself in order to kind of make it through out of necessity for the rest of this lifetime. Something has to give. Something has to change. Things in a material sense or an emotional sense, psychic, a psychological, a spiritual sense. It feels like all of that has collapsed. And at this point of ground zero, you and the frequency you're holding is really kind of, that's the point that they strive for. That's the point of kind of like these triggers, rather than being something which is a trigger of toxicity. They see that there's almost a medicine within that woundedness. So if you're feeling this person's energy around, or you're getting like a lot of signs about them, or you're just feeling like a heaviness or a presence, it feels that it's very much emanating from the conscious 3D individual is focused upon you. This isn't just they're getting, all the synchronicities and kind of turning the blind eye. They have definitely fixed their gaze and focus upon you in a very conscious 3D sense. Not with malice, not with hatred, not with negativity, but it's almost in the sense of looking at you as some kind of energetic teacher. You're a way shower, you're a beacon, you're that guiding light, you are that North Star, you're that point on the horizon that they understand. I must follow in this direction. I must lead myself in this direction vibrationally, into the intersection of this person's life again, into more of a present role in my dealings with them, if you are currently still dealing with one another. Because they're seeing that kind of the essence of who and what you are is kind of that solution that they have been needing. It is that kind of remedy for themselves. That is the best version of self. And so to kind of mimic that frequency and allow it to saturate in sort of how they're moving through the world, this is their strategy at this point. This is their focus. This is their very conscious intention at this point. They also say, I'm always with you in spirit. So they may be feeling your energy around. There may be a lot happening in the dream space from the higher self standpoint. Even if there's still silence in the material world between the two of you, there's a lot of co-creation at this point in time. It feels like two people who are at different and yet corresponding parts of their own kind of personal healing, growth, and ascension journey, but your frequencies are very much in alignment with one another. Very consciously, the two of you are in sync at this particular point in time. The only thing that is the illusion is anything that has not been spoken in the material realm. If it's been a disconnect, it's been a long time since you've talked to them. The only thing that is kind of the illusion is any sort of perception that they have any interest other than kind of reaching out and making things right. They're not just looking at you in terms of like, teach me how to be a better version of me so I can go off and have a better life. It's, I want to align with kind of the better version of me that you exude in this better version of you so that we can cross paths again, so that I can come forward to you, meeting you at that level, meeting you at that frequency, having done that work within myself and within my life so that we can progress forward together. They also say, I wish I could hold you in my arms and tell you how much you mean to me. So a lot of nostalgia, a lot of longing, a lot that they are having to look at in terms of their conduct in this connection in the past, ways in which they took you for granted or kind of misjudged you, made you sort of suffer or punished you as a result of kind of what other people did, that were other people who were careless with their heart, ways in which they were kind of raised, belief systems. They have all of these kind of wounds that in the past had brought out a detrimental energy to the harmony and balance between the two of you. There is a conscious and active desire and effort on this person's part to course correct within themselves with the intention of resurfacing in your life or giving something more to you in this circumstance if you're still dealing with one another, with the intention of, I want us to head in a more positive direction together. I want to build and grow and develop this situation or resurrect it in some way rather than kind of just allowing more time to pass and we're at a distance, or allowing things to kind of like fall apart and we're growing off in different directions. This is someone who's almost kind of fast tracking their progress and their growth to kind of meet you at your level. They understand time is of the essence. They don't want to miss this opportunity with you. They get it now. They see it. They're doing the work. They're doing things as quickly as they possibly can with this sort of incentive that if I give it my all, I stand a much better chance of kind of enjoying harmony with you in this situation than if I continue to do nothing and wish fulfillment in the form of you in this connection slips through my fingers or continues to drift further out of range and reach, and then I miss the opportunity and am left with kind of the heaviness and regret. They also say, I feel tired of hiding my true feelings from you. So again, an essence of someone who may have pushed you away in the past or has kept you at a distance energetically or emotionally, that a lot of this was based on kind of like wounding, a fear of the love that you had to offer to them previously, that they have come to some place of understanding that the culprit in this situation is a woundedness within them. It's something that they have needed to address and fix within themselves. They feel to be actively in the process of doing that, exploring different ways. It's almost the energy of feeling their way through the dark. So there may be different things that they're trying on, different kind of methods and modalities, different sorts of a different like tapestry or a formula or a recipe that they're working on that may kind of change on a regular basis. It may change on a daily basis, almost like taking the temperature of how they feel energetically and creating sort of like a treatment plan for themselves on a varying basis of sort of like, what do I need in order to kind of deal with whatever's surfacing? What do I need in order to at least sit through the storms and hold out the hope that there will be light at the end of the tunnel? What do I need in order to kind of clear away what does not serve me, in order to kind of allow those energies of healing to come through? So a lot of shadow work that they may be doing, again, like dark night of the soul sort of energy, but you're definitely a companion with them. Your energy's with them. Your higher self is with them. It feels like if you feel their energy around and you've acknowledged that, they've gotten that recognition. So again, it's the illusion is just whatever's not been spoken out loud, or any kind of silence that may exist if you've been in no contact over a period of time. That is almost kind of like the thinnest layer of reality. That doesn't hold as much weight as kind of what's happening internally, quietly, energetically speaking. Like you both know that one another knows that you feel this connection. You both know that one another knows that there is interaction and dialogue and exchange happening on kind of that subtle realm, on that energetic level. And it feels very necessary that this is the case at this particular point in time, because this person is almost, they're doing work that you may have done over the course of time, but they're almost like they're taking a crash course in that. They're making up for a lot of lost time. This is somebody who is very rapidly going through a cycle of kind of death and rebirth multiple times within themselves. A lot of heavy lifting as far as shadow work, but also quantum leaps as far as that ascension is concerned. So let's get some initials, and this can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Okay, I've got F, V, D, P, B, Q, J, K, Y, R, C, Z, C, S, N, F, A, M, B, and M. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well.